Oh, that's movie news. That's the wrong stream starting soon. Let's try that again. There we go. We'll just do it again, Stephen. You were on the screen briefly there.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
That's okay. I wouldn't pick my nose.
We're in now. Shambles. What a shambles.
Hello and welcome to this Friday's movie review. It's a terrible start. John, that's your fault. I'm blaming you for that. I was all set
really
to go.
That there,
but we'll start again. Welcome to the show, folks. This is MB. We'd like to thank you once again for joining us here on our YouTube channel and, of course, our Twitch stream. And tonight, as always, we're doing a movie review. And tonight, we are doing Thirumalai. This is one of VJ Telepathy.
Joseph Telepathy VJ's movies,
yeah.
Stephen. We'll bring up the full screen there.
Yeah,
we'll
why don't you do that? Yeah, and from 2003. Now, I am one of your co-hosts, Stephen John McLaughlin. I'm having an absolute nightmare here.
We're all on the screen now, Stephen.
We are all on the screen. My name is Stephen John McLaughlin. As I said, I'm one of your co-hosts. John C. Walsh is your other co-host. And, of course, our special guest, Ruth Aaron, is joining us, who is our... I'm going to put you right under the bus here, Ruth. Our Indian cinema expert. And also... recommended this film to us. John and I were not aware of this early Telepathy VJ movie from 2003, and one of the things that really intrigued me about this recommendation, Ruth, was that in your words, and I hope you don't mind me using your words, you said this film transitioned him from romantic hero to lead action hero at the time. Although one or two critics thought it was no different from his earlier romantic movies, this film still managed to revive his image as a mass hero and was regarded as a commercial success and is still considered one of VJ's top 20 films now.
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Well, we can't say that because we've not seen 20's films yet, but it definitely is up there for myself. When you sent that across, Ruth, one of the things that sort of sprung into my mind right away was another actor who was that sort of crossroads in his career as well, was Bruce Willis from 1988, when he did Detective John McClane in Die Hard. He was billed as a romantic comedy actor at the time as well, and a lot of people were not keen on him delving into the action genre. So that's the thing that really pulled me into this. Was we only know Telepathy VJ as an action hero, so we were very intrigued to see how that transition worked for him all the way back in 2003. But before obviously we kick off the review, we'd just like to thank you once again for joining us here on our YouTube channel and of course our Twitch stream. And as always, John will take us through this review experience, and Ruth and I are here to back him up with his thoughts and his questions, and we'll just see how it goes. But and we've also got our grading as well.
Yes.
To do.
Well, we'll do that just now, Stephen. We'll bring up the ratings graphic, then we'll get tore right into this movie and review it. This is how we rate our movies. Incidentally, it's an F through A scale. F equals a terrible movie. Think of John Travolta, Fanatic. When you see that, that's the kind of movie it slides in there. Then we kind of miss out poor, because there's no really a poor movie out there. And we go to average, D, minus through plus. And this is varying degrees of average, depending on where it lands on that scale. A lot of movies will go in there that are not bad, but they're not particularly good. And you go into good, that's C minus through plus. That's a good watch. There's a lot of my Marvel movies will come in here. Marvel movies I enjoy, like Ant-Man and stuff like that, will be in here. Good watch. B is anything through minus plus, and it's an excellent experience, an excellent movie will win here. My all-time favourite movie goes in here because it's not quite perfection, and that's Cool Hand Luke. A lot of good, really, really, really good movies will go in here. And of course, finally, A is reserved for perfection, which is Shawshank Redemption, Godfather, Apocalypse Now, Citizens Kane. You get the point. A lot of perfection, and maybe Ruth can find some perfect Indian movies in there if you know any, because look, you have a much more wider knowledge on Indian cinema than we do. We are just dipping our toes in just now. I think probably the closest we got to perfection so far from what we've watched is Super Deluxe. That was an incredible movie. That really that nearly get into close. That nearly get into perfection. For me, that was an Indian Pulp Fiction. But yeah, man, that's the grading scale. You'll get an idea of where we are falling. I'm sorry, I'm actually bringing things up on the screen trying to find my mouse cursor. It's a nightmare. I can't find it. That's how we grade our movies anyway, incidentally. So look, that out of the way, let's get into the actual review itself. what it all means I've explained. Just thoughts on this movie, expectations. Ruth, what is your experience with this movie? How did you become acquainted with it? Were you a Telepathy VJ fan before this point? Were you big into his romantic movies? Because also you're probably the better person to actually ask about what this movie meant to you getting in to watch it. For us, I didn't know much about it. Stephen just told me that you'd recommended this. We were reviewing it. I kind of looked into it briefly. I didn't know what I was expecting. I knew that it was his first sort of experience with action and being an action leading man. What was your experience with this movie though, going in? When did you first see it? And what was your expectations, Matt, perhaps going in before you actually seen this movie? If you've got any, I don't know if you had any.
Yeah, I saw this movie when it came out. I saw it in theaters. I had been a Vijay fan I had been watching Vijay from the very start, that when he first came as a hero in a movie. So pretty much every year when he would come up with another movie, I would watch it. And of course, initially he was very young, so it was a very different era. But we kind of grew up with the movies, so we could see the good and the bad at the same time. And he came up as a really good romantic hero, in the sense that the storylines used to be very drama based. There would be romance, there would be interaction with the families, and there would be some action, but it will all kind of link to the fact that you're trying to win the girl, the family's opposing it, they might send goons after you, so that's about the maximum of the fighting that you would do. So in this sense, when Thirumalai came around, it was kind of following the same formula of him a poor guy falling in love with a rich girl and the father disapproving of it. But this time round, the goons weren't just random goons that are sent to you. This was an actual, like mafia head boss or whatever, somebody who was actually a formidable foe. And a lot of it was him tackling this big bad. Mm. So in that sense, they changed it a little bit, and they also gave it a bit more of a twist. The way he handled things were a bit different from how a normal romantic movie would have been in the past.
Absolutely. Look, we were speaking about it before we even actually video called you, Ruth, and I can't think of many movies in Western cinema that follow this kind of template. Usually the romance movies, they're romantic comedies, or they're out and out romantic period pieces like Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice. They don't usually inject actual action into these kind of romantic movies over here. So I wasn't sure what to expect. As you did say, I've seen a lot of Telepathy movies myself, but obviously not as much as you. I've not really watched the early things where it was predominantly romance. But even in those other movies, you've kind of seen hints of it, where it has the romantic side act in the movie, but it doesn't really have a meaningful impact on it. It's just like a distraction, a bit of levity to get away from it. And this is probably the first time that I've seen him tackling out and out romance with action elements put in. Stephen, what was your thoughts on that, man? Because I know you watched it way before me, a couple of days before me. Can you see elements of what Ruth's saying there, where it's followed that sort of template, but they have made changes? Because I can certainly see that. Like Arisu's an out and out boss, a mafia boss, and I can see that.
From what we've seen so far, John, I think we might be on our 7th or 8th Telepathy VJ movie now. And what I have seen in this film is that those elements are in this movie so early on. When you look at the more recent films, they're more elongated, those sort of genres within the film. And it was interesting to see that, because it was one of the things when we first spoke about doing this review was this transition for the actor as well, and I was really intrigued to see how he would be able to cope with that. This being his sort of first all-out action. Well, it's got obviously a lot of romance in there as well, and more or less the storyline is this romantic pursuit and the approval as well. But the action in this film, I was very surprised about. Some people in the comments in our community were saying, it's one of these early ones, the production is a bit sketchy at times. I can ignore that, and I don't take that into consideration when I'm rating a film anyway. I grew up on very early Japanese, like sort of martial arts adventures. One of them being Monkey, from the late 1970s, and it was really bad wire work and stuff like that, and comedy elements thrown into the sort of martial arts kind of thing. And I take it for what it is. You know, it's one thing I'm not, it's a film snob. And when I looked at this and I looked at the action sequences in this, you could see those early glimpses of what was to come from Telepathy VJ in these later movies. Just his energy,
the trademark sort of cigarette thing. He does that with the gum now.
That's the gum now.
He's always got his little thing he does. That cigarette thing was brilliant, incidentally.
So
I love that.
The thing I liked about this film was you were seeing those early signs back in 2003 of what was to come, and leading right up to obviously Master, you know, and that's what I liked. And it was an interesting journey as well. When you were mentioning there, Ruth, as well, you know, every year when these films were released, I'm so jealous of that now, because when we went to see Master, we got a little glimpse of that, the excitement, anticipation of the next Telepathy VJ movie, and we've missed out in the last 18 years of his films releases. So that's one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to Beast, because we are fans of him now. We are late to the party, we get that, but in another way, you know, people that are big fans of Telepathy VJ might be jealous of us, because
we're about to experience it.
We're about to experience. We talked about that last week, John, with the Beatles. You went through all those albums. I was very jealous of
Stephen X-Files as well.
Experiencing that firsthand, you know. So we've got that to look forward to, his back catalogue, you know. Yeah,
and Stephen, it's going to be interesting looking at some. I want to go back and watch some of those out and out romantic movies as well, because I'm just intrigued to see all of the elements of this actor and how he's evolved from. Stephen, it puts me in mind of, and Ruth as well, I'm going to obviously keep you connected as well, because that was something I was aware of. I kept saying Stephen. It almost puts me in mind of Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s. He was a sort of romantic heartthrob. Most decent actors out today in Western cinema have started in that kind of romantic route. Ryan Reynolds, Leonardo DiCaprio, Ryan Gosling, Hugh Grant to an extent. They've kind of had romantic paths, and then they evolve and they start exploring, and that's what I'm seeing with Telepathy. He goes from predominantly romantic stuff in the 90s to doing this movie. Then I've seen some sort of period piece movie. I think is it Gilly or something it's called. It begins with a G. Apparently that was a super hit, a blockbuster. So I'm so intrigued to see how this goes.
Yeah, it came around like around the similar time as this movie, but just after. And if you listen to the dialogue in this, there are one or two points where Arasu makes a reference to Gilly.
Oh, does he? Yeah.
Which I think at that time it was already started shooting it by calling him Gilly.
Oh,
by calling Vijay.
Oh, that's
good.
I
didn't realize that word. It was like an advertisement for what was coming.
That's quite neat, using a little bit of advertisement in the actual movie. Yeah, just seeing that evolvement of him, or that evolving of him as an actor, seeing him going off from doing this movie to then becoming really established as a serious action leading man, if you'd like. We've seen that, Stephen, in the likes of Kaifi, Mercil, Sarkar to an extent. Tupaki probably being the more prominent one. He's an out and out action hero in that. He has his army friends and stuff. Incidentally, welcome in. I can't even read that, Stephen. Is that
Sachin Carthy? Yeah.
Welcome in. Thank you for coming in. But getting right into this movie review, man, we spoke about the build up to it and what it means to obviously us in Europe being an out and out Telepathy fan from a very, very young age and being aware of this guy a lot longer than us. The story, how the story flowed for you, the thoughts on the writing, character development, and just themes explored for me, and I may be completely wrong here, I'll butcher the pronunciation of this word incidentally, and it's an English word, which shows you how bad I am. Is it caste or cast? For me, it's a story about the caste system. Rich, poor. Thirumalai is a lowly bike mechanic. Yeah, the cast. He's a lowly bike mechanic, and Sepha, the woman he's trying to win the heart of, she is the daughter of this billionaire. I think he's a news company owner. And it's just that dynamic of rich women and the poor guy trying to get together, getting rid of all those sort of societal taboos that I think are more prominent in India, where you kind of have to get someone who can support you, and you have to go through the father to win. That's something that's universal. You kind of have to get the approval of the father everywhere. But I just thought the story was about that. This predominantly romantic story about him trying to win this woman's heart. She hates his guts at the start, really. She's trying her best to get rid of him. And then all of the stuff going on in the background with Arasu and her father. And I think he's killing off people, and there's a bit of blackmailing going on there. He's trying to explode it on his news show, and he's digging dirt on him with Thirumalai and this relationship. There's lots going on, but for me it was primarily a story about the caste system and rich and poor, and it just for me, man, I may be miles out. I like to look really deep into things, but he says a great line at the end, and I can't recall, I don't know if I wrote it down, but he basically says, you may be rich, but you're lacking. I'm poor, and we've got our values. We're decent people. We wouldn't drop to the levels that you're basically doing by kidnapping people. And I thought that was just a story in a microcosm for me. Rich, poor. The rich think they're better. The poor have actually got more personal values. Yeah. The rich have got, I don't know what you call it.
Elements, and
money.
There was elements of this,
of
Pride and Prejudice. You know, that sort of underlining sort of caste system and
class
system here.
We had it here, hardcore. We had the working class, the middle class, the rich elites. Still, and we've seen it in Titanic, and we've seen it in the likes of Sense and Sensibility, when those people from those classes try to blur the lines and get married into different classes, they don't like it, and they try to stop it at all costs. I don't know if I'm wrong, Ruth. What was your thoughts on this story? Am I anywhere close?
No,
you can be honest and say that I'm talking crap. I won't be offended.
No, you're absolutely spot on, because see, what was the double whammy where his character was that not only was he poor, but he was also an orphan. So being an orphan, it's a kind of, it ties in with being bad luck, and it's tied in not only with the caste system but also with Indian society at that time being very into like astrology and those kinds of things.
You see that at the start,
so when somebody got married, they would want the girl to get married into a good family, have all these things, and he being an orphan and being poor, it just added to why he would not be a suitable candidate when a parent wanted to pick somebody for, and not forgetting the fact that in general society used to be very opposed to any sort of love marriage relationship, so that was there. Also, a lot of Tamil movies or Hindi movies or whatever during that period of time really highlighted all these caste system problems, because, as you know, Indian society in general very much into movies, so they were hoping to kind of create a shift in the way the country viewed the caste system, that it shouldn't be something where you segregate the people to that extent, and that you could find good natures in all walks of life.
And we're still getting that, even in White Tiger, a Netflix movie that came out I think this year, and it was at Priyanka Chopra, I'm trying to remember, Jones, she starred in it, and that was kind of highlighting the caste system again in India. But yeah, for me, you're absolutely, that's the way I looked at it, and I'm glad to see I've kind of got it right. What I was trying to say was, Stephen, and Ruth, I get my tongue tied there. I'm blanking on her name already. Swifa and her father, they had materialistic and possessional worth and value. Obviously, Thirumalai, he had human, actual life experience value. He was a decent guy. They were corrupted by money. That's what I got. And just those two worlds colliding, and Arisu and the father try to take him down. I just thought it was a great concept in the actual story. But how did the story ebb and flow for you? How did the characters develop? For me, Svefa probably goes through I hope I'm saying her name right, probably goes through the greatest development in this movie. Thirumalai is always a thoroughly good guy in it. He's doing his best to try and get along and live a good life. He gets the bike repair garage. I think his friends chip in and give him the money to take over it. I think there's a wedding happening, and he's singing, and at one point it's one of the song and dance numbers about how he can finally earn and make a life for himself. He's always a fundamentally good character in this. For me, Sweth is the one that goes through the most development. She's quite uppity, and she's using people to beat him up and stuff like that, but by the end she's went full circle. She's actually seen, she actually loves him. He says at one point, you'll love me, at one point you'll be crying, and in the future you will love me, and she actually does at that point. So for me, she goes through the most development. But even Arisu is a pretty well developed character. You says you actually liked Arisu as a character. He's trying to kill people at the start, Stephen, but at the end he sees the value in what Thirumalai's saying, that I think he even says you're the better man. So some characters in this do get really well developed. I think Thirumalai's already a well developed character. He doesn't have to really develop throughout the story. I thought the character development was pretty damn good in it. And as we says, the artist, the guy who passed away with the iconic voice, his name's Artist in this. I think he's his brother or something, or there's a connection to him. He's living in the same house. He's a very interesting character as well. He doesn't really develop much because he doesn't have to. He's not really important to the story. but he's dropping little pearls of wisdom
Yeah.
into Thirumalai. You'll know the right woman when you see her. You'll have that feeling.
I was going to say that, John. I thought the artist's character was very important for Thirumalai's development in terms of growing up and being a man and understanding what it takes to be in a relationship. And I saw the artist as his sort of mentor and that sort of feel. I might be wrong, and maybe I picked it up and lost in translation, but I felt that he played a very important part in his romantic development, and he was almost like his mentor in that sense. Is it Raghu Varan? I think his name is. I think I might be.
Yeah, Raghu Varan.
For me, he stood out. It was that sort of figure. It was in the background for me. He didn't
keep the peace as well at one point.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a lot to do in the film, but his presence was just enough, and I felt I liked that character, and I agree with you as well. I thought the most character development came from Swetha. I felt just from what she started out in the film to where she ended up at the finale of the movie, just the sort of development and change in her attitude towards Thirumalai. I thought as well, you mentioned that John Arazu, he was a villain, but I appreciated the villain in this movie because I sensed very early on that he perhaps was maybe a little bit two-dimensional, but as the film progressed, you started to see other elements in there, especially maybe the last 10 minutes was perhaps rushed with his development and his appreciation for Thirumalai as well. But I liked him as a villain. I thought he was a worthy villain.
Have you got any thoughts, Ruth, on the character development? Do you think any particular character stood out in this movie in terms of the journey they went on, the development they had, start to finish? Is there any particular character within this story that really stood out to you and grabbed you?
Yeah. I think Swetha's character, yes, I do agree that she had the most character development in the sense that she kind of viewed life similarly to what her father viewed it in the beginning, where, she's telling him all these things like, do you know who I am? Do you know how much I've studied, or even the color reference is like, do you know how I look, and that kind of thing. And so all these things, and then he giving an answer, back to her for everything that, all these things don't really matter, because if you love someone, all you look at is whether or not the person can be with you and take care of you and love you, and those are the things that is important. Absolutely. And you can see how over a period of time she actually sees his good values and natures and realize that, those are the things that are important, whether or not this guy is a good guy, and so that in that sense, that's the most character development that you see throughout the thing. And of course the other one I thought was Arasu as well, because he really changes from this badass bad guy, who just go around killing people for. Basically, he's a hired hand. Anyone that pays him, he will kill for them, which is what Vijay refers to when he's talking to him. He says exactly that to him, that have you done any killing for yourself, and makes him think about it, so in that sense.
There's some great moments between those two characters.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's why I wanted to, because for me, when I knew I was taking a bit of a risk, asking you to watch a movie that was because it's like going backwards, and it's very hard to appreciate sometimes a movie when you're going backwards to how his caliber of acting is now, and then going all the way back to the start when he just starts out as a full-on action hero. So, but then I thought it was necessary for you to see, and I think you liked him enough to take that risk to say, fine. I don't think they're going to hate Vijay after this or think he's a bad actor.
No, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed the fact that we're going back and seeing a different side to him. Yeah. I'm just starting these sort of foundlings, if that's even the correct word, first steps into action in a sense, into what he's became. I love going back and seeing, just to put, I've done that with Western actors as well. Yeah. I see a movie, I go back and look at their earlier performances. And look, man, one thing that's been prominent throughout all the movies I've seen of Telepathies is he is always delivering a level of performance that's watchable. You can watch this guy. It's always, even in Sarkar, probably the lowest rated Telepathy movie, he's fantastic in the movie. He's incredibly watchable. It's just that the issue with that particular movie for me was he didn't have enough stars around him to help him out. Whereas in the likes of Mastery, Arjun Dasi, VG Sethupathi, and other movies, he's always got someone to bounce off of that elevates his performance, and they bounce. You know what I'm saying? They can actually help each other out. In Sarkar, it was missing, and this has enough good actors to bounce off of him. And we've been through a couple of them. Even Avinash, Shweva's father, Manoj K. Jayan. I'm reading these out. Terrible. I know. The pronunciations will be butchered. Raghuvaran. There's enough good performances. Is it Jyotika? Is that how you pronounce her name? Sveva? There's enough good actors around there that his performance isn't in vain. He can bounce off of them, and he's always watchable. In this movie, as you say, you're going way back to his first sort of steps into this particular genre, but you can still see elements of what he's became today. And look, he's never poor. One thing he says, though, you actually brought it up, the evolution of Arasu and Talapathi and his interactions, it actually brought me back to what this story was all about again. I was thinking, I actually forgot to say this. Him rising up and being constantly fearless and taking on Arasu and taking on Sveva's father, it almost, as you says, breaks down the caste system and shows you that this guy may be poor, he may come from nothing, he may have an orphan background, but his values, his fearlessness, he's ultimately the right person. It doesn't matter your background. If you're the right person and you connect with someone, class and caste systems, it doesn't matter, it's all bollocks. That again, it's his journey, him taking on these guys, taking on the likes of Arasu. It's just, again, it's a story in a microcosm.
Yeah, Arasu realises that before Svefa's father, and he actually says, in the finale, he says, paraphrasing, you're not going to do any better than him, basically.
He's the right man.
You know, he is the right man.
He's the right
and
man.
I think that's why he didn't put Thirumalai's friends in danger. He obviously kidnapped him, which is wrong. But
that was to get a reaction.
It was just to get the reaction, and because I think he did see something that Svefa's father didn't see. It's interesting to see that he's actually billed as Svefa's father on IMDb. He's not actually got a character's name. Did he have a character's name in the film?
I never seen the character named and sort of.
No.
Yeah, I never seen him formally named.
That was interesting. That's one of the other reasons I do like the Azura character, because he saw something that her father didn't see in Thirumalai.
I think he's seen parts of himself in Thirumalai.
Yeah.
The ballsiness, the bravery, that ability to go up and command a situation, because we see it on the top of the building site. He walks right into the lion's den, he's clicking his fingers. And he's taking complete control. There's about a dozen men around Arazu and the sort of other guy, and he's clicking his fingers and just totally controlling it. I think he's seen himself in him, and he's like, we'll have to tread carefully with this guy. I've underestimated him myself. That'll get us into actual standout moments, incidentally, because I've got quite a lot of standout moments. I don't know what your thoughts are on the song and dance numbers. You actually says we reacted to one, and you were absolutely bang on, Ruth. I forgot all about it. It's the very first song and dance number in this movie. I don't know who the little guy is. I'm calling him a little guy. I don't know how tall he is or nothing, but the guy he was dancing with, he kind of races him at the start of the movie. And I think he says to him, then who won the race, me or you? Both of us. It goes into that song and dance.
He's the choreographer of the dance.
Oh, is that him?
He's a choreographer of the dance. He's the one who choreographed the dance, and his name is Raghava Lawrence. And he's a very good choreographer. He does a lot of choreographing for a lot of Tamil movie dances and stuff. But he also is an actor, and in recent years he's also been a director. He's directed a few like horror genre movies and stuff. Yeah.
And that's a good place to start for a director as well. A lot of great directors have started in horror and went on to do something special. Comedy as well. He was brilliant. That song and dance number's probably my second favourite. I'm going to go through all the song and dance numbers. I don't know if you're alright with that. We'll get into standout moments. I want to do the song and dance numbers first. I think there's 4 in this movie. The first one, it's him and that guy, Talapathi and that guy, and they're mirroring each other, and just unbelievable. I kind of says that Alu Arjun was a better dancer. I think that's harsh on Talapathi. He's a lot younger than him. I think he's 14 years younger or something. There's a huge age gap between them, and he's doing what Talapathi was doing in this movie now. So it was harsh on Talapathi. He did a kind of a cobra movement where he was coming up from the ground, and that guy was matching it beat for beat. Unbelievable the way they were synchronised. I loved the song as well. The drumming was unbelievable. There was a kind of vocal thing. It was like na 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 or something like that going on. I really enjoyed that song and dance number. I thought it was a great way to kickstart this movie off. And we spoke about this, Ruth, the last time I think we did the Q&A. about the song and dance numbers and what they do for these movies. Sometimes they'll condense elements of a story into a 2-3 minute song and dance number and free up the movie for other things to happen. And this, we get a sense of what this guy's all about. He's racing bikes, he loves bikes, that's his sort of reason d'etre, if you'd like. And just a great start of the movie. I don't know what your thoughts were, both of you, on that song and dance number, that particular one, the first one. Because of course he does one with Kieran Rathod, I think her name is. She's not actually in the movie, she just makes an appearance for the song and dance number. That was a great, but I'll let you get in. What was your thoughts on the first song and dance number before I go off and speak about every other one, because I'd be here for 20 minutes.
I'll be brief then, if I can just touch in. The one in, I think it was Cairo.
That one.
I would hope it was. The reason for that is just the intimacy between both the stars in that sequence. I felt it was very important to establish that. John, you talked about the storytelling within the dance numbers, and it's something that we picked up very early on, maybe as early as when we did KGF.
Yeah.
It's that condensed storyline that tells a story itself in a very fast way, but hits the mark. And I felt that dance number was very important to this film as well, to establish those relationships.
It's getting sand in her face at one point. It's kind of, you don't love me, I love you.
Yeah.
Why can't you reciprocate this love? And they're doing it to the backdrop of the Giza pyramids. I thought it was unbelievable. It was a
really good sequence, and I liked the visuals in it as well.
Yeah.
The first number as well, John, the one we reacted to, it makes sense, Ruth, that this guy is as good as Telepathy VJ. He's the choreographer, as you said. That all makes perfect sense now, because I thought this guy is just as good as Telepathy VJ, and now you've gave us the answer to that. So I think the one probably that was had the backdrop of the pyramids was probably my favourite.
Ruth, before I let you in, I just have to say that wasn't my favourite one, the first one. My favourite dance number's the last one, where they're finally together, Swever and Thirumalai. And he's calling her, "Oh chubby girl, why did you spoil me?" I'm like, she's not chubby. What are you talking about, Telepathy? She ain't chubby, man. She's perfect shape. She's not chubby at all. But the way they're kind of together, it was a different kind of musical number. And again, just brilliant little moments, seeing them together finally. These characters that were kind of playing hard to get, cat and mouse throughout the movie. To see them together, that was probably my favourite one. But even Kieran Rathod, that second dance number, she comes in and he's doing the little cigarette trick and close-ups. That's another thing I loved about this movie. I'll get into that in a moment though. Ruth, what was your favourite? Did you have a favourite song and dance number? What was your thoughts on them all, really, in this movie? Do you think they forwarded the story at all in certain parts and just gave it... sometimes they're just a nice little piece of levity for the story.
Yeah. Well, I really love I kind of love all the songs to a certain extent, but I really love the first one because the dance sequence is just so amazing. It's spot on. Very rarely do you have a dance sequence sometimes where the song is spot on, the steps are spot on, and it was some very beautiful and interesting choreography, which I really liked a lot. And I like the fact that they both, so it really showed you the level of how good Vijay is as a dancer.
Yeah.
That he's dancing with the choreographer of the dance, and and it says a lot about the choreographer as well, to be able to give the steps to Vijay to do. And I kind of like training him up so that he's dancing at the same level, and him neither one trying to outshine the other.
It was a great moment where he repeated the choreographer danced a sequence, and then Telepathy did the exact same one, and he kind of looked at him as if, there you go, bitch, I've repeated it. I'm better than you. Was there a particular one that stood out for you though? Because for me, as I says, the last one where they're together finally, just in the mood of that.
I like the last one as well. Yeah, because the last one, I loved the melody and the tune of it really, and the words were so meaningful. Yeah,
it was lovely. It was quite a floaty little number. Yeah. It was lovely. What was I going to say?
And
on you go,
Kiran did, and the one that Kiran did was actually she is actually depicting like a fortune teller. During those period of time, they usually have like people who that's why she was looking at his palm and saying that she starts off the song with wishing him good fortune because this is going to happen and that's going to happen and that kind of thing.
Kind of had a little tattoo
life is going to change
thing going on as well. The sort of that mascara things going on in her face.
Yeah,
she was quite good in that. She was bouncing off him pretty well. I liked her energy. The fact she wasn't in the movie kind of disappointed me. She was an interesting.
She actually has acted as a heroine in some of movies as well.
I'll need to look at her, man. I'll need to have a look.
Yeah.
Just that's what I love about these movies. You see little glimpses of actors and actresses, and you think, oh, I wonder what they've did. And because I'm new to the actual industry in this particular region of Indian cinema, you go off on a little journey. It's like what we've seen. We've seen Vijay Sethupathi play Bhavani in Master. We went off on a journey and watched this guy. We've seen the likes of Dhanush. We go off on a journey and watch him. I want to see more Armad Taven as well. I love Vikram Vedha. Those two together. We were speaking about that, Stephen.
Yeah, loved that.
That was a great movie, man. Armad Taven was brilliant in that as a sort of the cop on this moral precipice. He was nearly bad, he was nearly good. That concept as well between those two of what defines a cop and what defines a criminal. Are they not the same thing? I'm going off on one. But look, I was going to say something there, man. I absolutely loved the editing at the beginning of this movie. That was a little bit abrupt there, but look, wasn't intended to be like that incidentally. Stephen, that says at the start of this movie, it was almost Edgar Wright-esque cuts. It cuts to telepathy and he kind of looks at the camera. He does little winks. He does the cigarette trick. Yeah. At the end of the first, is it the second song and dance number, it flicks to him and it kind of does a close-up and does the cigarette trick. Some of the cuts, the quick cuts and close-ups, it kind of put me in mind of Edgar Wright in this movie. And actually the director, I've seen he wrote the script as well. It's Ramana. So I don't know a huge amount about him. I'll have to look at him as well. If indeed it is a he, incidentally, I may be miles out. I'm just seeing the name. But yeah, I like that sort of close-up, quick cut. That's something I've kind of grew up with Edgar Wright. And I know that'll probably make you feel old, Stephen, by saying that I grew up, but I kind of did. I was 14 when I seen Shaun of the Dead. But Stephen and Ruth, standout moments in this movie, man. I have a fair few. The little guy we spoke about, the interview guy,
I loved him.
He has his moments. I think it's the same guy. Is it the same guy that's getting the astronomy thing at the start and he's stripping off, he's wearing red? I don't know if that's the same guy, but it's kind of, I liked that moment anyway where he's stripping off, he's hearing the, is it an astronomy fortune telling sort of thing from the news, and he's like, oh my god. And telepathy's very physical in his acting at that point. He's trying to walk off the actual screen and he pulls him back. Where are you going to? I just loved that, man. I loved the acting from telepathy within that moment. It was kind of Jim Carrey Riddler-esque, the way he's kind of trying to walk off the screen like that. But yeah, that was a standout moment. There was obviously this chase sequence for me as well. When we first see Thirumalai in action, I think, I don't know what happens, his carom board gets smashed up. I love that carom game, by the way. I think that's absolutely class. We've seen that in the Dhanush movie. What Dhanush movie was it? We've seen that in, was it Ajurin? It was Veda Chennai, no. Was it? It was Veda Chennai, carom.
Yeah.
But that chase sequence was incredible. I love the cinematography, the way it followed the action, the way Thirumalai jumps down from the sort of like overpass and beats the shit out of them. Now I do have some issues with obviously the fight, but like Stephen kind of explained that it's that kind of old school vibe, and that may have been an actual artistic choice to sort of when they're slapping and hitting. And obviously the wire work with the backflip was quite noticeable, but I love the fact that he did the backflip. It sets this character up as someone not to be messed with right from the start. You know, he can handle himself. What was your thoughts on that? Did you have any thoughts on that chase sequence? If you even know what I'm talking about, man, I may be miles ahead of you and talking absolute crap here. Can you remember that chase sequence at the start of the movie? What did you make about that? Because it's the first sort of burst of action in the movie. It's all quite slow paced at that point. It kind of explodes into action. What was your thoughts on that, if you had any? Don't care what one goes first.
Yeah, I think just from my own experience, I think this was the sort of introduction to his action genre. I liked it. I liked the pursuit. It was very fast flowing. I liked the cuts as well. You talked about the Edgar Wright type cuts, John. There's an act to that as well. It's either going to go one way or another. We've seen some bad editing who've tried to replicate that, or not tried to replicate Edgar Wright, that kind of style of editing in the 1990 Captain America movie, which you end up having some kind of fit just watching it.
Yeah, watching it.
But if it's done right, it's an enjoyable watch. I felt that sequence, the chase sequence and the fight sequence as well, was handled very well, and it was great because watching VJ for the first time, tried to put myself into that sort of perspective of watching him for the first time, although I've already seen 60s action movies. I'm trying to put myself into that position of imagine what it was like to see this guy spring into action for the very first time after what he did with his romantic comedies, and seeing how he handled that. So that's the way sort of I was looking at that sort of sequence, and that is a standout sequence for me in the movie. Apart from obviously Vivek, who did the interview sequences, which I thought lightened the story up a bit as well, and there were so many laugh out loud moments with that character as well. The best one was him falling down the drain for me, but the other one I did like was the one where he was wearing the white clothing.
He beats the shit out of that guy, doesn't
he? He wears a green outfit, and that
Stephen,
he's a
his
criminal,
moment in
this
the
guy.
interview, his interview moment when he actually gets to the interview, and he sets fire to the desk. He has a good rant at that point as well.
That's brilliant. I love that bit. Yeah, that's a great bit as well. The bit where he set fire to the desk. But for me, it's that chase sequence. I think that was a very key and pivotal moment for VJ as an actor, and to be taken seriously as well. Because if that sequence did not work, his career could have really went in another direction.
Ruth, have you got any thoughts on that chase sequence, or perhaps any standout moments in this movie? Because I've got quite a few that I'll get into, so I don't want to clog up the actual review by going on and on and on and on. Maybe you can. I don't know if you've got any particular standout moments. Perhaps if a chase sequence, the first fight isn't one, just ignore it completely and maybe speak about some of your standout moments.
I love the chase sequence that when he's playing with the camera, because it was very unique, because he ran in the opposite direction, so it seemed like he was running away. So there was a bit of a play, but then it also told you a lot about the fact that he knows the area so well. He knows exactly where the shortcuts are to get to where he's supposed to be. And so that was really interesting to watch, and also the fact that I love all the comedy sequences. Of course, Vivek is just brilliant, at bringing home the comedy. It's like a story within itself, of this other guy who's there. And and I think I like a lot of the interactions that Vijay's character has with Arasu as well, because those are like, it's a formidable villain where he's actually interacting a lot with the villain, and they're kind of assessing each other as people. So I loved all of that really a lot. And incidentally, the director who directed this movie, Thirumalai, was actually his first one as a director.
That's incredible.
And he's directed, I think, about 3 movies in total so far. And there's another movie of Vijay's that he directed as well.
I'll need to have a look at that. That's interesting. It's actually his first movie. That actually makes it quite a bit more impressive what he actually accomplished in it then, if that's his very first movie he's directed. And also working with Tarapathi. I don't know how big a name he was at that point, if he was quite as big as he is now, this sort of superstar that can draw 20,000 people to events, if he's perhaps...
Yeah, because around that time Vijay actually was already a big name, because his romantic movies, there were so many that he had done previous to this, and he was huge in the sense that, because he had gone through all that when he started out, because his father was in the industry as well as an actor and director. There was a lot of talk of nepotism and that kind of stuff when he started. But then as it went along, they realized that he was a really good actor himself. And,
I can't imagine him just giving jobs to the boys, his father. There's no way he'd just do that. He also recognised there was talent there, and he's also wanted to give it a chance to blossom, if you like.
Exactly, yeah. So he really proved himself. So, and then, so by the time he came to Thirumalai, he was already quite a big star. So him even giving a shot to somebody to make his first round of making a movie.
We're seeing that with Beast as well, aren't we? The Beast one that's coming out. I think that's actually a fairly new director he's given a chance to there to also take the movie on. I may be wrong. I'll have to look into that, but I think we spoke about that as well. It's kind of working with new talent and trying to bring them on. That's another aspect to this guy. And obviously, Lokesh Kind of Garage.
They do a lot of that in South Indian cinema, where they give a shot to somebody who's up and coming. Very often, they were more willing to take risks like that.
Yeah. And look, that's nice to see, man, because obviously over here, an up-and-coming director would never get to work with someone like Leonardo DiCaprio. You'd have to do something special. They're usually drawn to established talent, if you'd like. What he says there, Ruth, about also his interaction with Arasu, the villain, there's a point where he actually, I think, meets him for the first time. It's established that Swetha has been kept under house arrest because her father's discovered the relationship. I love that moment on the beach, incidentally, with the cops getting massacred in the middle of the road, and they're having a moment on the beach. The camcorder flits to them, and that's how the father finds out. But what that builds to, the first interaction with him and Arasu, I really enjoyed that. He kind of does donuts on the bike to herald his arrival. He goes up and he walks right in, and I spoke about it earlier, the clicking of the fingers. Basically says, if you've got an issue with me, come and speak to me. Don't do it through other people. Don't involve a love in it and stuff like that. And just the way that little weasel tries to go for him, and he kicks him and then catches him on the edge. I thought that was a great moment. I think the actual, I don't know if I'm right here in saying, is Arasu looking on from, was that Arasu he was speaking to, or was he watching from a distance and basically manoeuvring things? Or was that, I don't know, even now I need to think back and remember it. But I really enjoyed that sequence anyway. He basically lays the law down and he walks away, and that's when they say, Thirumalai, we underestimated this guy, we need to watch him, we need to handle him carefully. So that was an important moment in the movie as well. And obviously he has multiple interactions with Arasu in this movie. Towards the end, I think he actually beats him up and sends him on his way. He comes back again, and that kind of starts the warming to Thirumalai for Arasu. He says, look, you are the better man, you keep coming back, essentially I can't beat this guy, we'll let him have his way, we'll let him go. So I enjoyed the interactions between the villain and Thirumalai in this. And then obviously we're totally kind of whitewashing the whole back and forth relationship between Swetha. Even though I'm changing it every time I say it, Swetha. Every time I say the name, I'm pronouncing it differently. The interactions between Swetha and Thirumalai in this movie as well. A large chunk of this for me is romantic based, as you did say, Ruth, at the start. It follows the similar blueprints to these previous romantic movies. You have the goons come and break them up. They don't want them getting married and having the relationship, but with little differences, because it's an actual proper villain that's involved. It's not just some nameless person. I liked the kind of back and forth relationship, and as I did say, I think Swetha had the huge lion's share of development in this movie, and I just like the fact this is probably the first telepathy movie I've watched that doesn't just have a side romantic plot tacked on just to break up the story. There's a purpose to it.
Older movies a lot of the older movies you will find, as you watch more of them, they were a lot more cohesive in that sense. It was because as he went along and became a bigger action star, people went to watch the action stuff. So they didn't want to kind of mix it up. So they used just they split it up a bit and kept it as a side reference. If there was any romance, it would be like a small break in the tension. Yeah. But before, it used to be a lot more integrated into the which I think I think it's a little bit of a mistake in the current movies that you have to have that much of a difference between the two. I like it when it's a bit more integrated into the entire storytelling. But that's the direction it's gone. So hopefully it will come back again at some point.
We also watched Mercel and reviewed that, and there was people actually coming into the comment section and saying, we liked Kajal Argawal and Samantha in that. I hope I'm pronouncing that name again. I'm going to butcher a lot of names. But there wasn't really a need for them in this story. We could have got rid of those characters and it wouldn't have impacted the story. And these are two pretty big actors, because we've watched a lot of movies and they pop up time to time. Samantha, huge.
I think in Telepathy VJ's later movies there has been that sort of disregard for the romantic element to a point where it's probably time factor, just because of the genre is more action and adventure, and the romantic sort of elements of the film are a bit more sidelined. We did see it in some of those films, and I think we might have commented as well that some of the romantic elements fizzled out, and there was no sort of conclusion to them at the end of the story. But I think that's why it's so more prominent in this movie, because it is action / romance, and you're going to get that when you've got a character like Swetha in there, and it's probably more noticeable for us because we're not used to seeing the female lead being so prominent, and I think it's a good mix. I think one of the things that for such an early film, Thirumalai for me balances it very well. It's something that I felt I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if I'm going to like that. Is it going to be jarring? It certainly wasn't. I felt they handled it very well in this film.
Yeah, they did. And Stephen, look, you were speaking about romantic side plots fizzling out. Sarkar's the first one that springs to mind. He has that sort of love interest. He goes back to Tamil and they do to vote.
Yeah.
And he sees her and he's like, oh, we're kind of sparking this romance again. She kind of disappears off into the movie 2/3 in, and she's never really seen again. So that's one of the aspects I really enjoyed about this movie. The Swetha character, how much development she has, the fact she's a real integral part of the actual story, their relationship, try to get together, how it wrongs her father, and that starts all this sort of craziness and try to do away with his friends and him himself. And I like the fact that was a key element to this story. So that was another, just that whole interaction between those two characters. And little moments as well where he goes to the college and he writes her a love note, and she's obviously reading it out to everybody and they're laughing at him. And I think he mentions two Indian poets, I actually don't know what their names are, and he basically says something like, if we're basing true love off a poetry, then only these two people have the right to true romance. And they all start saying you're right. The way he changes it, they're laughing at him and they actually start respecting him at the end, and he walks away. I think that's quite an important moment for those two as well. She starts realising actually this guy, he may make some mistakes in his writing and stuff, but there's something behind there. He's not just an airhead, he's actually quite a good guy.
His heart's in the right place, yeah. Yeah,
just their interactions were really, really good. And also that final dance number, that's kind of those two, that's their moment. So I really enjoyed that. That was my standout dance moment. So for me, the real standout moment, it's not really the violence and the action, it's actually the relationship between Swetha and Thirumalai and the way that develops in the movie. But moving on, man, to performances. This is going to be a hard one, actually. I have to tell you. Standout performer. Obviously, I'm going to go with Joseph Vijay. Of course I have to, man. It's not hard at all. I'm talking crap. He sees the man. It's his movie. It's his jump over to action. And I think he handles it perfectly. And you can see how he's actually developed into the guy he is now. And he's really comfortable in this genre doing things. He's had multiple hits. And how he's got this huge fan base following him for this specific kind of genre action. He handles it very well. He always has that presence when he's on the screen. You watch him, you're drawn to this guy. And his speeches, he has a speech at one point as well. I think it's actually to the father, and it's that speech I was talking about where he basically says, you may be rich, you maybe have materialistic value, but you're basically a bastard in a sense. You've two-timed my friends, you've kidnapped them. I'm a poor guy, I have nothing, but I have better moral fibre than you. He always has a speech, he always has a standout moment. His action's good, and his interactions with Swetha, for me, he's without doubt the standout performer. But then you've got Manoj K. Jayan in there, you've got Joe Yatika. They're fantastic. We mentioned again that poor guy that passed away, Raghuvaran. There's some really good performances, and that's what I says earlier. Yeah. You needed them to bounce off of Telepathy. Telepathy can't do it on his own. He needs some good actors around him. But for me, Telepathy,
yeah, I think so as well. I've got to agree with that. For me, it's Vijay every day of the week, because it's his. The focus is on his character. The film's named after his character to start off with. But when you've got a supporting cast of those people that you just mentioned, John, that makes that sort of puts the main character more prominent into the story as well. But that's down to the acting. I thought Azura, I thought Swetha's father, they all played those parts. Avinash, I think the actor's name is.
Avinash, yeah.
And you've got Manoj K. Jayan as well. Vivek, for his comedy moments as well. Just those little elements that all counted for something. Raghuvaran as well as the artist. He was just that sort of
wisdom, wise figure.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was. He was the mentor in the background.
Thirumalai was a hothead. This guy was kind of more composed. He was like the better version of Thirumalai. Thirumalai was very impulsive. This guy's, well, I've been there. You want to be like me. Stop being this impulsive guy. But Stephen, who was your standout performer before we go to Ruth and later?
It was Vijay, because I think a lot. I'm very interested to find out what the perception of the sort of critics out there was at the time when they got word that Vijay was going to be doing this action film. I'm very interested to find out what their initial reaction was when they found out that he was going to be doing a more action-based romantic film. And I would love to read some of the reviews when the movie first came out as well, because a lot of pressure on him at the time. He was a young guy. You've got to remember,
28.
Yeah, a very young actor at the time, and it's very interesting that I didn't know that his father was in the movie business as well. So that adds a bit of pressure as well, to the actor. So I think for him to have to carry that can into that change of genre that we would have been used to him doing, those romantic films in the early days, and be able to pull off in the way he did. I thought it was excellent. That's why he's my standout in this movie.
Ruth, what is your thoughts? If you get a standout performer in this movie, are you kind of sharing the sentiments that it's telepathic, kind of has to be, or maybe you've got someone else that stands out?
No, obviously Vijay's acting is really good in this, and for me, he's obviously the standout character, which should be the case because it's his movie. But I also thought that Arasu did a really good job as well for his role, and like all the supporting cast, they did a lot to kind of make the hero kind of work better in the setting, because everyone did their part really well. Even his friends, the way they were, when he went with a friend to get him the girl, and that whole bit between the families and that kind of stuff. That was also
good. That bit, I forgot about that bit.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting sequence, because there was a lesson in that as well, that usually when the other man says, that usually if a guy brings a girl, his friends will get them married off and that's it. But you brought him back here because you were concerned about some guy that you don't even know waiting here for the bride and being embarrassed and that kind of stuff, because she did run away from the wedding, which is bad for that guy. So it was very interesting, because all of the characters, which is what is kind of lacking sometimes in some of the latest movies, because you don't have a lot of all the supporting cast doing such a fantastic job, which is ironical, because a lot of the actors that are acting in the latest movies are also good actors, and they used to, but it's just the formula has changed a little bit. And in changing the formula, some things have become better. The production values of the movies have become better. The cinematography has become better. A lot of the storylines have been a lot more interesting and stuff. But they've lost out on a lot of this cohesiveness that you have with the supporting cast and everything, which I'm hoping that they will get back to again. But so that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, it's all quite cyclical, isn't it? With movies, you kind of get stylistic trends. They'll maybe be drawn to a specific style, and then they'll perhaps go back to that style we've seen, and it'll probably be a better, more refined version of what we were getting in that time. And obviously, telepathy, if anyone's going to lead the change, it'll probably be him. That scene you were speaking about, that was a great moment, when he kind of takes the runaway bride back, and he says to the guy, "No, you beg, you get to your feet and ask for forgiveness." He ends up getting the guy a job and a new wife. I'm like, that's this guy, man. Unbelievable. He talks it round. Unbelievable the way he does it. That was a great sequence for me. Listen, editing, technical stuff. Have we got any thoughts on technical stuff? I thought the cinematography was pretty damn decent in this movie. I alluded to the Edgar Wright kind of stuff at the start, the quick cuts. Shots of him taking his trademark cigarette out in the actual movie. I thought the editing was pretty decent. Stephen, I know you probably had more issues with the length of the movie than I did. I think you thought there was times it could have been... Listen, even there was parts of this movie I think could have been trimmed, but I think that's the case for most movies. I always speak about George Lucas, that famous quote he says, the perfect movie for him, if he could have trimmed a Star Wars movie down to 2 hours, it would have been perfect, but he never could manage it. No. He can never get to that perfect 2 hour mark. So there's elements that could be taken out, but for me the editing in the main is pretty decent. I don't think there's much you can take out without losing that cohesion you were speaking about, Ruth, and taking away from that relationship with Sweva and Thirumalai. So for me, editing was pretty decent in the main. Cinematography was very good. Lots of capturing of the action, slow-mo stuff again.
Close-ups, yeah.
And then just capturing the tension of moments between the likes of Arasu, Thirumalai, the father. I mean, he's sitting in his bedroom at one point waiting on him waking up, and they captured it perfectly. So that's the cinematography. The score was very good. I enjoyed the score. There was lots of kind of weird stuff going on in there. Lots of different themes. So for me, technically, I really enjoyed the movie. I'm actually trying to find the cinematographer. It was R. Rafnavelu, if I'm saying that right. He's done a lot of work. He's done a lot of body of work. So, yeah, what I'm saying is I'm not going to linger on it too long. I enjoyed the technical stuff in this movie. For it to be his first movie, Romana, delving with this sort of complicated mix of romanticism and action, I think it was pretty damn decent in the main, man. There's not much about it I would change. And then, have you got any thoughts, Ruth, on the technical stuff in this movie? Editing, cinematography, score, stuff like that?
Nothing really stands out to me, John. I'll be honest with you. Nothing negative, that is, in terms of editing. There's two sides of editing. You've got to consider the editing of, as some scenes dragging on too much, could it maybe have been cut here or there? And then there's also the sort of fast flowing or slow, the pace of the movie, that is very important when you're editing as well. And we already talked about that. I think they got that right for the action sequences. Sound editing, on the other hand, was
a couple of bits,
a bit sketchy at times, but the production value, you've got to take it with a grain of salt for its time. It was very interesting. I think we had the discussion as well that these early movies weren't designed for the Western audiences. They were. It
was actually Ruth who says that, didn't you? And they were traditionally that the movies were more designed for local audiences, and then they realised there was actually a global audience interested in the actors in these movies, and they started really making changes and making it more accessible.
I'm not going to hold that against the rating of this film, the production value of it for its time, because I understand the intent. But I thought the production was very good. You talk about the score as well, John, and you talk about the musical segments of the film. All worked for me. They all had a place. They all had the theme for that particular moment in the film, and I thought it was a well put together film for a very early film. And you talk about, obviously, the director, this is his first
Romana. I didn't know that.
Well,
that actually changes the complexion of this movie for me.
Changes my rating as well, John.
Knowing that this guy, it was his first attempt at directing, working with a guy of Telepathy's prestige, and then it being his first step into that genre, that changes the way I look at this movie again. But Ruth, have you got any thoughts on the technical stuff, cinematography, score, editing, anything to say at all? If you haven't, it's absolutely fine, man. You can just skip it. It's up to you.
No, I think I'm not really great at all understanding all of the technical stuff. But of course, if you compare it to movies now, surely it's lacking in a lot of things. Yeah. But I think we can forgive it also because apart from it being at the time, what was available, there was also a budget issue because South Indian cinema, as opposed to maybe North Indian cinema and all that, at the time, they usually get a little bit of a smaller budget. Now, probably his movies get a bit more of a bigger budget, so they can do a lot more, which is why all the music videos and all that are, like, it has a higher production value, in terms of how it looks, how polished it looks, and also, that he's changing of costumes and all those things. You have it more. I mean, they still did it, in the past.
Some of his costume changes still, now are unreal, man. This guy, that's another thing. What he can wear things that I can only dream of wearing, and he rocks it. There's something about the guy. He's a sort of chameleon, costume-wise. But sorry, I interrupted you. On you go. I'm an ignorant git.
Yeah. So, in that sense, I think there are certain things that you need to consider also because of the fact that they probably didn't get a lot of money, and also the time. Like usually in India, they produce so many movies that it's amazing that they get so many churned out, during the year and all that. Whereas with him, of course, he usually tried to stick to a movie a year, mainly because it will take some time to get it done. But then usually they would have started production on something else that's going to come out for the next year and that kind of stuff. So
that's something.
So what do you think?
On you go.
I just wanted to know, what do you guys think about like in general, like would you be more willing to check out more of the older stuff he's done?
I'm always open.
Based on this.
I'm always open, man, to looking back at this guy's career and seeing how he's established himself, how he's evolved as an actor. It's always something I'm into.
Yeah.
And look, I want to go back and look at some of the older stuff of most of these actors. I'm really intrigued to see I know we watched, what was the movie we watched in Vijay Sethupathi was actually an extra. He was kind of I missed him. I think it may have been Super Deluxe. Was it Super Deluxe?
No, it wasn't Super Deluxe.
No, he was the actual main man at Super Deluxe. What was it?
Yeah.
There was a movie that he was in.
It was the last Danush one, I think we did.
Was it Puda Pitai? It wasn't Puda. Was it Puda Pitai?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
He was in it as a sort of extra. So I'd love to go back and look at all these actors and see some of them really. And look, the fact that we've now got access to some of these movies, man, it's going to make it a lot more easier. So absolutely.
You know, John, you always talk about you don't know where to start when it comes to comic book reading, and I totally understand that with the amount of content that's out there. But I think in terms of films, I think it's important if you've already seen 6-7 of Telepathy VJ's movies. I think it's important to understand his journey as well. I know we've watched those mashups on YouTube and stuff like that. Kind of
I want to watch that Geely movie,
but I really am interested in his early movies as well, because I want to see his progression. And this film has gave us that glimpse of his progression already, you know. I don't know if you mean further back than this movie, Ruth, or if you mean from here up to obviously his recent stuff.
From here up to his recent stuff.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in that.
I just want to watch more of the guy's movies. I think he's a really interesting personality. I just love how he is off the screen as well, the way he portrays himself, handles himself. I just think I can't think of any other figure over here, maybe Joaquin Phoenix in terms of what he does for veganism and stuff like that in the climate. There's a couple of figures over here, but he's just a really unique individual, the way he handles himself. And that always attracts me to him. But then, just seeing the multitude of different performances he's produced, sometimes he plays 2-3 characters in a movie. It's very intriguing to look at. And look what he says there, just going off on a brief tangent, I find that very interesting. I've actually read about that, delving into the whole north-south divide, the actual industries within India. The north traditionally has been the more rich industry. That's the first thing you think of when you think of Indian cinema. Certainly when we were coming into it, I thought Bollywood. I didn't even realise there was Collywoods, Tollywoods, different industries. And I think that's probably a large part of why these movies, some of the times the production wasn't on a par with maybe the Bollywood movies, because probably a lack of finance, as you did say. Not enough eyeballs on it to justify funding these movies with more money. I think now that's changing. We spoke about it, Stephen, during the pandemic. It's actually South Indian cinema that's drawn in box office. They are the bigger movies. They seem to be more creative now. I think it's changed from north to south now. The Telugu, Tamil Nadu, Malayalam, I think's the other one, isn't it? I think that's south. I'm sure that's Kerala. They are really where the actual talent is now. The likes of Gokesh Khanna Garage, all of these young actors, and even Telepathy, I'll call him young as well. He's 47, that's young. I think that's where the talent is now, and that's now why you're seeing a lot of money being put in. And the production value in Master was unbelievable. And even some of the other movies, Jagami Phantom, it was a Netflix movie. I had my gripes with it, but it's slick as hell. It would just slide right into a Western catalogue, not a problem. So I'm enjoying the fact that the money's starting to flood to the south, because I think that's where the talent is now. And I'm going to say that because it's mostly South Indian people who are watching my stuff. The North Indian stuff's crap, but South Indian stuff's the best. Bugger those, that Northern lot. Any Northern people come in, I'm just lying, it's alright. We want to watch Northern Indian stuff as well. But yeah, man, overall thoughts on this movie, rating. My rating's changed, I have to say. Overall thoughts, and it's actually, it always changes every time. I have a preconceived idea of what I'm going to rate a movie.
The reason for that is because you're seeing different perspectives. I've changed my rating from what you know of, and it's because I'm listening to yourself, I'm listening to Ruth's point of view as well, and I'm taking on board what you guys are saying, and it's great to see that perspective, because there is things that you interpret and you may pick up wrong, and when you hear it from another point of view, it kind of clicks. There's a light bulb moment, you go, right, okay. And you get those little tidbits about, obviously this is the director's first movie as well. That's important, because that's something I was very ignorant of. I wasn't aware of that. Probably should have done my research a little bit better. But those things matter. You know, those things you've got to take into consideration. And while we've been talking for the past hour, believe it or not, I've understood the sort of position of Telepathy VJ when this film was in production, and obviously the anticipation of this movie's release as well, which I've took into consideration. Pressure that might have been on him for this movie's release, and his reputation as well. Yeah.
Look, man, as I say, my actual reviews, my grading's changed, and it's always the same. I was laughing at that. It's always the same when you start speaking about the movie. I don't know, and as you say, Stephen, having Ruth on as well, having had a sort of perspective on it, it kind of opens up areas of the movie perhaps I've not looked at. The fact Ravana, it was his first movie, And just what you says, budgetary things and stuff like that, the way the industry was back then, it's changed my opinion on it again, and that's why I love talking about movies, man, because you go on a journey across maybe an hour, and you change the way you're going to grade it. But look, man, final thoughts, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to enjoy it, actually, with it being, because I'm not usually into out and out sort of romantic movies, but I do enjoy it. I've got a bit of guilty pleasure. I love Sense and Sensibility, Alan Rickman, and who else is in that? What's her name?
Thompson,
Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit of a guilty pleasure there, but I really enjoyed it, man. I love seeing Telepathy's first sort of tentative footsteps into action, and it was like a really high standard. I thought the writing and the main man, the way that ebbed and flowed. I actually talked about it on the show last night because I was about an hour and 40 minutes in, and I says during the show I liked the way they were building into the last hour, and it kind of connected the way I thought it was going to connect. So overall, I had a decent experience watching this, man. At 42 hours 40 minutes, I think 46 minutes. Didn't feel like that for me. I felt it felt like maybe a 2 or 15 minute movie. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Before I get into grading though, if you get any final thoughts on this movie, Ruth, man?
I'll just add to what you said, John, very quickly, before Ruth gives her final thoughts. But just everything you said there. But more importantly, I watched this movie in its entirety in one sitting, which sometimes I've not got time to do, especially for a near-off 3-hour movie. I sat and watched this from beginning to end because it flowed well. It was an interesting concept, and the actors were of a high calibre. 2
seconds, I'm going to change the scene here very quickly and copy the ratings over to this scene because I'm not in it. There we go. I've got the ratings in now. Ruth, have you got any thoughts before we get right into rating this movie? Because I've got my rating already. If you get any final thoughts? No final thoughts? Well,
it's fine.
I'm going to rate this movie a C+. I think it's a good movie, high calibre good movie. I really enjoyed it. That's what I've got. I've got a C+. Stephen, have you got your rating?
Yeah, I have, John. It's a C for me.
A C?
Which is a big change from what I was initially going to be reviewing.
I think it's a good movie. I think it's a really good movie.
The reason I gave
it
a C and it's not a plus is because the only thing that I probably did have a niggle was with Thirumalai's stakes in the movie. At no point did I feel he was at risk physically. I felt he was probably, there should have been that bit of vulnerability, in some of maybe the physical scenes.
That's something we've seen in the later Telepathy
again,
movies.
it's nitpicking.
Master.
It's only a slight grade down from obviously C+.
Obviously, Master, he wasn't the strongest guy in that by any means. He had sort of moments where the kids get hanged and stuff like that, and you really seen into the guy's soul. So yeah, that'd probably be another thing for me. Yeah, maybe the fact he was beating the shit out of 12 people. But look, I've watched a lot of Indian cinema, and as Ruth, as you says, they do like to make them kind of super heroic. So that's fine by me. I'm used to it now. Doesn't bother me. Ruth, have you got a rating in mind for this? FD minus through plus?
Yeah, I'll probably give it a C+ as well.
There we go, man. There's the rating coming up. Yeah, listen, I thought it was really good. I thought it was high calibre, good rating, and again I'll bring up the actual graphics just to show you what the actual reviews mean, man. So look, there you go. I've gave it a high good. It's certainly in the upper echelons of the rating system, if you like, fancy pants echelons word. I really enjoyed it, man. Yeah, and I was surprised by it. Very surprised by his tentative footsteps into action. But look, man, unless any of you have got anything to say, any final thoughts, I'm going to round it up. So this is your time. Speak now or forever be silent. That's going to round it up then. What is your thoughts on Thirumalai, the Telepathy movie from all the way back in 2013 when I was but a fresh-faced 14-year-old guy? Those were the days, Stephen. Remember that? Celtic getting to European Cup finals? Oh my, they were the days. Telepathy making his first steps into action. What's your thoughts on it though? What's your thoughts on Telepathy in general? Our review, Ruth, me, Stephen. If you've got anything to say at all, you can comment down below in the comments section and share your thoughts down there. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future, and you will get it. Go to me because I've not got the actual shit. What am I doing? End screen outro. Bye bye guys. I need to copy them into the right scenes. Bye guys.